Are you ready for the word of God? Okay. So when I share the word, I'd like you to pray, all right? Pray that the word of God will also touch those who are here in our Zoom meeting for the first time, and also all of you who are veterans, that God will bless you. All right. Today's message is entitled From Deception to Reception. It's a very unique message. It's a message of God's grace and mercy. And from Joshua 9, Joshua 9 is about conquering, about killing people, wiping out tribes and wiping up, like a massacre, killing everywhere. And how can we be talking about God's grace and mercy in the midst of such killing? Let's see, all right? The background, the last few weeks we've been talking about, the last week was about the city of Ai, that ultimately the city of Ai was defeated and burned, and the victory of the Lord was complete. Yeah. And so now the Lord planned to wipe out all the Canaanites. And you'll be wondering, why God, he was so cruel and wanted to kill everybody. You are talking about old and young, men and women, even children. Everybody must be killed in that place. And, and so there were people who wrote articles on the internet and, saying that this God that you worship is a very cruel God, is a very lousy God. And, and it's different. And they began to compare, it's different from Jesus Christ and all that. But let me explain, because I think once you understand what God is doing, then you will be able to appreciate. Because number one thing is that he is the creator God, right? So he created all things and he has the right to take away life. He gives life, he can take away life. Not like us. We are the procreators, which means that we produce our children, but we don't even know how they come. Yeah. All right. The origin of the Canaanites. Let's go back to the time of the flood. And after the flood, the sons of Noah, Shem, Japheth, and Ham came out from the ark and became the ancestors of all the people of the earth. So we know that we came from Adam, but everybody got wiped out and left only Noah and his family. And therefore, from these three brothers, we all came. And so Shem, which means fame or renowned or name, he was the father of the Semitic people. And the Jewish people were known as the Semitic people through his son, Ephasid. All right, and some of the Semitic people were the Akkadians, the Assyrians, the Babylonians, the Phoenician, the Arameans, and even the Arab, and so on. And then you find that Japheth is, say, may he have space, that's his name, may God enlarge, yeah? He had 7 sons, and they produced descendants, and they live in the coastline of the Mediterranean. And then the descendants, later on, they became mostly Europeans. And there was one group of his descendants actually went to China and became the Miao people, all right? You'll find that features are different. It's because of mutation. And when they go to different country, you find that because of the response and reaction to the climates, therefore, mutation start to take place. Now, mutation is not, that you change from a monkey to become a man, but that you are still a human being and you just change in your features. Okay, and you find that later on they were among the first Gentiles to be blessed by the gospel of Jesus Christ. And then you have Ham. Ham means hot or sunburn in Hebrew. And his sons were Cush, Egypt, Put, and Canaan. That's why it's upon this Ham that we are, this person Ham that we are very interested in, because apparently Chinese came from this. Now, those of you Indian, most probably you came from Japheth, but Chinese came from Ham. And so one of the more illustrious sons that he had was called Nimrod, was son of Cush, who was a mighty hunter and king over Babel. You heard about the Tower of Babel, where all languages had been reinvented. Yeah, and then Nimrod also built the ancient city of Nineveh. Okay, whom later on God sent the prophet Jonah. Wow. Okay, we read this part here. It's called Noah's mistake because Noah began to be a man of the soil and he planted a vineyard. He drank of the wine and became drunk and lay uncovered in his tent, which means that he was naked. Yeah. And so Ephesians 5:18 tell us, do not get drunk with wine, for that is debauchery, but be filled with the Spirit. Now, when I reach 50 years old and I try to drink wine because I was told that, uh, wine will be good for health, and I didn't have the habit. I remember I opened up one bottle of wine and then didn't finish it, and later on it became vinegar. So, but when you want to drink, but you cannot get drunk, okay, cannot get drunk. Now, what happened was that Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brothers outside. So that was a mockery. What Ham did was wrong, was that instead of quietly cover up his father, all right, he went and told the two brothers. So he was having a lot of fun. Hey, look at daddy, he's naked and all that. And so that is, to the ancient people, that would be total disrespect. Even in my family, if I would see my father in that condition, I must cover him up, and I am not allowed to go and tell everybody that that he was lying there like that. So among us conservative Chinese, so that would be really bad. Yeah. So the Jewish culture was very, very strict about that. For anyone who curses his father or his mother shall surely be put to death. You see, just that you retaliate and you curse your parents, you'll be put to death. All right. The law was so strict, yeah. And he has cursed his father or his mother, his blood is upon him. Means that if you have been put to death, is you are responsible for your own death because you have been disrespectful. So being disrespectful is a big sin. It's a big sin in ancient Israel. So disrespect was a very serious crime. And if we check Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 18, if a man has a stubborn and rebellious son who will not obey the voice of his father or the voice of his mother, and though they discipline him, will not listen to them, you know what they would do? Then his father and his mother shall take hold of him and bring him out to the elders of his city at the gate of the place where he lived. You see, the gate was actually the courthouse. Okay, at the gate, they will do all the judging. And so they shall say to the elders of his city, you know what I say? This our son is stubborn and rebellious. He will not obey our voice. He is a glutton and a drunkard. Now watch this. Then all the men of the city shall stone him to death with stones. So you shall purge the evil from your midst, and all Israel shall hear and fear. Today, children, they do not tend to obey because we have been very relaxed in teaching them how to obey. And so that's why they will grow, they would grow up, in disobedience, and then also in civil disobedience and disobedience to the government. And like in Singapore, some of them will ask put on masks, and they say, no, I'm a sovereign. Means that I am a person to myself and I obey nobody. I'm a sovereign, you see. And so, but the real good culture is that to teach respect. Imagine if, let's say, this church were to teach disrespect, then your children can disrespect you and call you all kinds of names and curse you and all that. Then you don't want to come to this church. And then if the church will also teach you having disrespect for the elders of the church or the leadership of the church, and let's say you are a leader in the church and people disrespect you. But it's not just the idea of, having a title and having respect, but what God thinks about it. To me, it's very clear, respect and honor. That's why when I met my pastor, when I became a senior pastor and I got ordained, when I met my pastor, I never called my pastor by name. Never. She will always be my pastor. I'll say pastor, pastor. All right. And even when I'm now addressing like our chairman of the Foursquare church, I never call him, hey, Sam, because he's my leader. He's been appointed by God to be the chairman of the Foursquare, the denomination that we are now in. So I honor him, and though he's younger than I am, I call him pastor. All right. So title is not just a title. Title is that you honor the call, and the call comes from God, which means you honor God. But some people say, I don't care. Now, that is your privilege, right? If you don't care. But to me, disrespect in the eye of God is an absolute no-no. Then Shem and Japheth took a garment, laid it on both their shoulders, walked backward, and covered the nakedness of their father. Their faces were turned backward, and they did not see their father's nakedness. And I like to put this into the spiritual sense, is that sometimes we have family situation and family problems, and then we like to air those dirty laundry, especially that of our parents or of our elder brothers or our sisters, and we like to tell a lot of bad stories about them. Now, if they allow you to share, and as a testimony is fine, which means that previously they were like that and now they have changed. But some of us, we don't. The purpose of sharing was to derail them and then to destroy, their reputation. And so this kind of attack would mean uncovering the nakedness of our fathers, our mothers, and our elders. And so once again, you find that God frowned upon that. So when Noah awoke from his wine and found out what Ham, his youngest son, had done to him, he said, "Cursed be Canaan, the lowest of slaves will he be to his brothers." Now here is a topic that has been discussed for 2,000 years or more. I think maybe for 3,000-4,000 years, ever since this story was written. Why, when Ham was the one who mocked at the father, who made fun of his nakedness, and Noah woke up and cursed Canaan. Canaan was the grandson, for crying out loud. Why did he curse Canaan? And I was studying this, and during Bible school days or so, we discussed about this, and maybe really, man, this Noah, this old man must be really drunk, Well, for what he's trying to do, he go and curse his grandson, But as we studied, then we began to realize why. Because in antiquity, there would be certain kind of a retaliation. Okay, now it means that the consequence of your sin. So what you have done, there will be consequence. So what is this way? This is what Noah was trying to say. He said, "You, Ham, my youngest son, right? You're my youngest son. You have shown me such disrespect and dishonor. Now, Canaan, your youngest son, will be cursed to show you disrespect and dishonor." And actually, that curse actually went to the Canaanites. And so Canaan descendant will be cursed to serve his brother's descendants as the lowest of slave. And so you find that in later time, many of the Canaanites, they actually disappeared. They vanished from this earth. Yeah, many of them died out and they were killed. Yeah, so the curse was there. But what happened? The other sons of Ham were Cush, Egypt, Put, and they were not cursed directly by Noah. All right, and so from Egypt came the Egyptian, of course. From Cush came the Ethiopian, and from Put came the Libyans. So if you want to study a little bit about the table of nation. And so Canaan was the son, was the father of Sidon, his firstborn, and he was the father of the Hittites, Jebusites, Amorites, Girgashites, the Hivites. So later on, when we learn about the Gibeonites, they were the Hivites, yeah, and the Archites. Now the yellow-colored Sinites or Sinites is the tribe that we are interested in, because chances are that we, or at least I am Chinese, came from there. And the Avadites, the Zemarites, and the Hamathites. And last time when in Bible school, and we say, and mosquito bites. So that is for the fun of it. Yeah. How do we know that we actually we came from Noah? Is because in the Chinese you find that the word boat, the boat, you can see it consists of vessels with 8 mouths. Yeah, 8 mouths means 8 people. So there will be 8 people in the Noah's Ark. And so you find that why did the Chinese write the boat or the ship as 10 people or 20 people or 100 people? Why only 8 people? A ship should be very big and you can put thousands of people or hundreds of people, but why 8? That's because of Noah's Ark. Yeah, so we are related to Noah in that sense. Yeah, and so in Isaiah 49:12 says that from a land of Sinim, okay, God will call his people back. Means the idea is to tell you that from far, far away land, God will call his people back. Yeah, and based on the Dead Sea Scroll, that the word Sinim was used. But you find that your English translation, some of your translations say Sion, and then other translations say Aswan. Now, Aswan, these were places in Africa. And when I checked the map, it's actually not too far away, not too far away. So it wouldn't give you this intensity of the distance. So Sinim, China would be the other side, all right, very far away. And during those days, the Arab traders already linked China to the Middle East, yeah? And the Arab traders, they also trade in slave and all that. And so remember, Joseph was one of those being sold to the traders, yeah? So ancient China was connected, at least they have heard of this land. And so based on the table of nation in Genesis 10 and also the book of Jubilees, which you don't have, all right, the 2 sons of Canaan came out the Hittites and the Kitte and Kete. So the word Kete came from this source here. So you remember you fly the airline Cathay Pacific. So Brother Joseph should know this very well. Based in Hong Kong, yeah, and then from the son named Sin, you came the Sinites, and then Sinim, and then China. So we say that these were most likely ancestors of the Oriental people, and the Han people, right? In China, you have many types of people, different kind of people, and then we came from the Han people, right? And the Han people, the source may be from the word Ham, right? Chinese, we don't call Ham, we say Han. So Ham was actually the father of Canaan. All right, so the descendants of the Sinites migrated to the east, and even in secular history, the people of the Far East were known as Sine. And then Chinese people have always been identified by the prefix Sino, right? Sino-Japanese War, Sinology, the study of Chinese history. So we find the correlation here. Now, the question is asked, are the Chinese a cursed race? Since that if we have come from Canaan and that, Noah cursed Canaan, so are we a cursed race? Let me explain this. Now read Romans chapter 3 and verse 22 to 24. This righteousness is given through faith in Jesus Christ to all who believe, right? All who believe. So there's no difference between Jew and Gentile. So the Jewish people and us, we are the same. Why? Because for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. All of us have been cursed. Cursed by this Adamic fall, because Adam fell, Adam and Eve disobeyed God, and so their sin, all right, their sin became our sin. So we are under a curse. That specific curse by Noah would be no effect unless God appropriated. All right. And then you find that as long as these people were under the curse, what did they do? They depart from God, which ultimately the Chinese did. The Chinese worshiped one God, then they departed from God and they began to worship many gods. And so that curse actually was activated, is that we became a land of idol worshippers. And that's why you have so many gods, as many gods as those Hindus, all right? Chinese, anything good, we worship. We worship mountain, we worship moon, we worship river, we worship Guan Gong, we worship heroes. So what happened is that for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. We have departed from God and we start to look at the created things. So that the curse was actually working. Yeah. And that all are justified freely by his grace through the redemption that came by Christ Jesus. But with this curse came the grace of God. Amen. The grace of God. And the grace of God was what? You know, that there will be redemption, that we are justified freely by his grace through the redemption that came by Jesus Christ. And so Galatians 3:13 says, but Christ has rescued us from the curse. So I want you to let this word ring very clearly in your heart. Christ has rescued us from the curse pronounced by the law. When he was hung on the cross, he took upon himself the curse for our wrongdoing. So we are no longer cursed. Hallelujah. For it is written in the scripture, cursed is everyone who is hung on the tree. He died on the cross. He died on the tree for us. And then we are no longer cursed. So all of us, all races are under this Adamic curse. It's the sin, the original sin. All right. That's why we are doing Alpha. We want to take people out of a curse. Some people say, wow, you're Christian, you're so active, you're so proud. If I don't accept your Jesus, I go to hell. That's not true. The fact of the matter is that you are already going to hell. You are already under a curse. Not because you don't accept Jesus Christ. It is that you are already, under a curse. And so Jesus actually come to take your curse. So Jesus is saying, can you hand over your curse to me? So what you are doing now is that when you reach out to the people during this Alpha course, what you do is that you tell them, get out of your curse. You don't have to live under your curses anymore. Get out. Okay? Now, when you talk about the mercy of God, now from the time of Abraham right on to the time of Moses and Joshua, it's about 650 years. And God had been merciful to the Canaanites for 650 years. And did you realize that God gave them the best land? Canaan land was the best land, known as the promised land, was the best land flowing with milk and honey. So for these cursed people, all right, the Canaanites, they were staying in the best land. So how can you say God has been very unjust and God has been very nasty? God gave them chances. And in as much as God give you chances, how often you need to be punished for the wrong things that you say, for the wrong things that you are thinking about, for the evil that's in your heart. The Lord, he could have just punished you, but he gave you grace and mercy. He give you chance to repent. All right, have you? Or are you still so hateful and still full of bitterness? But these Canaanites, that throughout those time, opportunity to repent, they did not. They did not. So God talked to Abraham. He said, as for you, you shall go to your fathers in peace. You shall be buried at a good old age. And your descendants shall come back here in the fourth generation, for the iniquity of the Amorite is not yet complete. So what God was trying to say to Abraham was that I am watching these people. I'm watching how bad they are going to become, how bad they are going to be. And then when the time comes, I am going to punish them. So don't say I haven't given them chance. There are so many years, generation, for you to repent and change. Just like, for example, the people in Nineveh, they repented. Then God didn't destroy them. God said, I'm going to destroy you if you don't. So God said, I'm waiting for the iniquity of the Amorites, the people, the Canaanites, to be completed. Then I will come. Now, when we say about Canaanites, right? Melchizedek, the king of Salem, just now Pastor Karen shared about him. He was a Canaanite, but he was a priest of the God Most High, Elyon, and he worshiped God. So it's not that because you are just born a Canaanite, then you are condemned to die. But there were those who recognized God. And then the psalmist pointed this out when he prophesied, you are a priest forever in the order of Melchizedek. Who was the psalmist saying, and what was the writer of Hebrews referring to? He was referring to Jesus Christ. That Jesus Christ from the tribe of Judah, not from the Levites, but he was the priest forever, in the lineage of Melchizedek, a Canaanite. So God is not looking at because of your race, now I'm going to kill you because of your race, but because of your attitude, because of who you are worshiping. Okay? Are you worshiping the real God or are you worshiping the idol? And so why were the Canaanites marked to be destroyed? This is what God said to the Israelites, he said, do not say in your heart after the Lord your God has thrust them out before you. It is because of my righteousness that the Lord has brought me in to possess this land. Now, here is a spiritual truth here, is that many of us, when we are being blessed, we are being blessed financially, we are being blessed with good health, we are being blessed with, a good brain and a good soul, and the right type of a spirit to be able to enjoy the word of God and grow spiritually. You know what we do? We become puffed up. We may say, oh, I think, God is blessing me because of my righteousness. No. It's his righteousness. It's the righteousness of Christ that may God bless you. Okay? Don't even dare to take any credit for your righteousness, because all your righteousness are but filthy red. Okay? Means dirty cloth. So God told the people of Israel, don't take credit. I am giving this land to you is because the wickedness of this nation that the Lord is driving them out before you. Because the time to drive them out has come. I'm going to drive them out. I'm going to use you. All right? So you are going to get the plunders. You are going to get everything that they have. You are going to get it free. God could have used a flood. God could have used a storm. God could have used an earthquake to destroy all these people. But God said, no, I'm going to use you. I want to remove them from this earth, but I'm going to use you. Okay? That forever you know that this land is a promised land to you. And then the Lord said, when my angel goes before you and brings you the Amorites and the Hittites and the Perizzites and the Canaanites and the Hivites and the Jebusites. Now, before I go on, it says, and when my angel goes before you. Well, that tells me something again. That in anything that I'm doing and you are doing, oh, you are so good at preaching, you are so good at teaching, You are so good at counseling. You are so good at all this. Let me tell you, an angel goes before you. All right? We have guardian angels. And then best of all is the Holy Spirit goes before you. So I have the promise of God when God asked me to be a preacher, and I make this request. I say, God, I will preach as long as you promise to go before me and you promise to go behind me. Means that I know that God is with me. Okay? And so the angel goes before you. And then he says, and I will blot them out, which means that the hand of God through you will blot them out. And you shall not bow. Now, here again, you see, God's biggest concern was that these people, the Canaanites, right, they would influence the people, the children of Israel. So he said, you shall not bow down to their gods, nor serve them, nor do as they do, but you shall utterly overthrow them and break their pillars into pieces. And so they have this worship pole and all these pillars and this temple that they built up to Baal and to all the Canaanite gods. But later on, you find that in the history of the children of Israel, you find that the people actually fell. Okay, they actually worship idols, and God got to send many prophets to come to convince them and to bring them back to the way of the Lord. And I pray that spiritually speaking, is that you are not tempted by the idols of the world and you're not drawn by the things. These three things are your idol. All right. The lust of the eyes, what you see, you want. The lust of the flesh, what you crave for, and then the pride of life. But for us Christians, the worst is the pride of life. I have seen so many pastors fail. They fell flat on their faces because of pride. Very good preachers, very good, men of God and women of God, but suddenly you see they fell flat. Why? Proud, puffed up. So the devil knows how to find the weak point, the entry point, right? And yours truly here fell one time also because of pride. Okay, so I'm not saying everybody. I'm saying I myself too. There was a period of time when I left the ministry and I went to kill myself. Why? Because pride. Okay, so that's another time I'll share again that story. All right, what happened when the people heard that Joshua had destroyed Jericho and Ai? So now when all the kings west of the Jordan heard about these things, the kings in the hill country in the western foothills and along the entire coast of the Mediterranean Sea as far as Lebanon, they came for a meeting, right? The kings of the Hittites, the kings of the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. So they came together. What did they plan? They say, we will unite, all right? We will create a united front and we will fight these people. And so to wage war against Joshua and Israel. But there was a group of Hivites that believed that they could not and they shouldn't fight. And so in Joshua chapter 9, verse 3 and 4 says, however, when the people of Gibeon and Gideon are two different things, Gibeon, all right, heard what Joshua had done to Jericho and Ai, they resorted to a ploy, which means that deception. They want to use a deception. You see, what happened was that they had studied the enemies very well, and they learned that the enemy will not destroy their opponents if the opponent were to stay very far away. Okay, so they got this idea now. And so, but first we want to tell you about who the Gibeonites were. They were the Hivites that we learned, and Gibeon, one of their cities, was an important royal city. Let me tell you, it was like it was a very huge, in ancient days, it would be the metropolitan of the ancient days, yeah? And that it was larger and stronger than the city of Ai. So one more thing is that in Joshua chapter 10, verse 2 says, all their men were good fighters. That was recorded in history. They were good fighters and they were be of big size, because you know what? They were deemed as giants. Yeah. So most of the men were very muscular, tall, and good fighters. But why did they surrender? Why did they plan to surrender to the children of Israel? Because they fear their God. They fear the God of Israel. And so they went as a delegation whose donkeys were loaded with worn out sacks and old wineskin, cracked and mended. Fantastic. And then they put up worn and patched sandals on their feet, wore old clothes. All the bread of their food supply was dry and moldy. And so then they went to Joshua in the camp at Gilgal and said to him and the Israelites, "We have come from a distant country. Make a treaty with us." So they were advocating that they need to have a treaty with Joshua because we are actually far away. We are of no influence to you. Okay? We won't harm you. The Israelites said to the Hivites, he said, "But perhaps you live near us." So the people, the children of Israel were not that dumb. Say, "Perhaps you live near us. So how can we make a treaty with you?" So here you find that the Gibeonites, they already anticipated this question. So this is what they say. "We are your servant," they said to Joshua. So they flattered him. They say, "We bow down before you. We come and we surrender ourselves to you. We are your servant." And Joshua said, "Who are you and where do you come from?" Again, the question was being asked. And so they answered, "Your servant have come from a very distant country because of the fame of the Lord your God. For we have heard reports of him, all that he did in Egypt." Wow. So now they refer to the distant past. All right. Long time ago, what happened? What your God had done in Egypt. And so they also realized that their spy had discovered that Moses also gave this instruction to Joshua: faraway cities should not be destroyed. Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 10 to 18, you can read them. It says that for the faraway enemies, if they are willing to make peace with them. No need to march and destroy them. Yeah. So they say, "We are from a very distant country." And all that he did to the two kings of Amorites, meaning what God did to the two kings of the Amorites east of the Jordan, means the other side. Now you are west of the Jordan. We heard this story about you. East means a long time ago, right? Sihon, the king of Heshbon, and Og, the king of Bashan, who reigned in Ashtaroth. So this is long time ago. We heard it because we live from far away, yeah? But did you realize that there was no mention of the destruction of Jericho or the city of Ai? Because all these were recent. And so they say, we are far away, therefore we have no knowledge of what just happened. See, very, very smart, isn't it? So very brilliant enemy. No mention. Okay. And so now the trap set for a vow to be made. Because they also they knew that the people of Israel, they're very dedicated to their God, and definitely when they set a vow before their God, they will not change. They knew that. So the whole trap was to get this vow, to get this oath out, all right, this vow. And our elders and all those living in our country said to us, "Take provision for your journey, go and meet them and say to them, 'We are your servant,' and make a treaty with us." Joshua 9:1, yeah. Then he said, "This bread of ours." Now here is the trick here, because he's going to use visualization, going to use, what you see, you believe, right? So the bread of ours was warm when we packed it at home on the day we left to come to you. But now see how dry and moldy it is. Means that these people must have traveled for months for, at least for weeks, right? Just to come to Gilgal. But now see how dry and moldy it is. And this wineskin that we feel were new, and see how cracked they are. And our clothes and sandals are worn out by the very long journey. So they produce all these evidences. And so like a magician, right? They would produce things, and with a sleight of hand, you think that's real. So the deception, the trap was set. And then the Israelites sampled their provision, which means that they take a look at the cloth, at the clothes, they crush it a little bit and say, yeah, this is really brittle now. They tasted a little bit of the bread, this is moldy. And then they tasted the wine, bad wine, because the back, the wine skin had been broken, and so wine had been spoiled. They sampled their provision. But you see the second line there, but did not inquire of the Lord. Wow, I can tell you, here is a lesson for us, an important lesson for us. Do not think that you know the will of God and just trust in your own wisdom and strength and decide everything by yourself. And I'm speaking this to myself too. When God asked me to shepherd this church, I have to seek his face all the time. Because this is the new environment, new situation. I have never pastored a church in a situation like this. I have never pastored this kind of a church whereby people come online for the online church. I have to listen to God all the time. Now, I would be stupid not to listen to God, isn't it? I would be really, really dumb if I were to think that I'm smarter than God. Maybe some of you may think that you are, but I am not. I am not as smart as God. I may not even as smart as some of you. I always have to seek God. Every day, I have to wait upon God and say, what do I do? Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not onto your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he shall direct your path. Proverbs 3:5-6. You have memorized this verse, but here it is. Now you are going through this difficult time. You're looking for a job. Trust the Lord. Don't depend upon your old self, your old wisdom. Last time you were a brilliant old guy, or a brilliant guy or a brilliant gal. Don't trust that. Trust in the Lord. And so there was a merciful mistake being made, a mistake of mercy. Then Joshua made a treaty of peace with them to let them live, and the leaders of the assembly ratified by oath, which means they make a vow. Oath means they make a vow to the Lord, not just to anybody, to the Lord. 3 days after, they make the treaty with the Gibeonites. Whoa, 3 days after, the Israelites heard that they were neighbors living near them, something like only 3 days away from them. Means if they were to march their soldiers 3 days, they will reach their place. Very near, too near. But they pretended as though they came from Moscow, Oh, we are like from Moscow and we are coming here to KL. No, they were like just next door, Singapore, or maybe next door, Thailand. 3 days you can reach there. Wow. They discovered, oh dear, they had been conned, they had been tricked. So the Israelites set out, and on the third day came to their cities, Gibeon, Gephera, Beroth, and Kereth Jearim. They came and met, all the fortresses there. Okay? But the Israelites, now listen to this very carefully. But the Israelites did not attack them. Why? Because the leaders of the assembly had sworn an oath to them by the Lord, the God of Israel. I tell you, the word, the vow that you make is so important, and especially you make before the Lord. So those words prevent them from destroying their enemies. Then the whole assembly grumbled against the leaders. This is very common, isn't it? You find that the children of Israel, they are very famous for murmuring and grumbling. And so this time they grumble. Even in our church also, right? There are people who grumble against the leaders, against why this is not done and that's not done, or they got a better idea of how to run this church, right? So they murmur and grumble. So it's very, very common. So like I told all my pastors and all the leaders, cell leaders, if you cannot take things like that, all the murmuring and grumbling, then don't be a leader. Go and be something else, but don't be a leader because your skin is too thin. You don't have this anointed skin. Anointed skin are very thick skin. All right. I can tell you, you can spit me on my face. I can see smile at you. Yes. 20 churches now. Every church we got people grumbling and murmuring. Oh, this pastor is no good. This pastor didn't do this. This pastor didn't do that. This pastor preached too long. This pastor, when you preach too in depth, cannot, say, Pastor, we are not going to be Bible school student. No, why we need to learn so much? And then when you preach about Elijah, they say, what have Elijah to do with us? Things like that. This is my own personal experience. And then when I talk about it, if I would have become very frustrated by it, I would not want to be a pastor anymore, especially at my age now, Oh, I just got my 67th birthday, all right? Now, at my age now, I say, I retire. I don't care. But you see, the call of God. The call of God is there. So the whole assembly, they grumble against the leaders, and the leaders answered, we have given them our oath by the Lord, the God of Israel, and therefore we cannot touch them now. Wow. That's called honor, man. That is called respect. Yeah. And this is what we will do to them. We will let them live so that God's wrath will not fall on us for breaking the vow or breaking the oath we swore to them. Because you see, you can be the people of God, but every moment you come against your own word, your promise to God, your vow to God, that God's anger will be upon you too. So be very careful. Don't go into giving vow. Yeah. So Jesus said, now I want to bring you to the time of Jesus, right? Teaching about vows. He said, you have also heard that our ancestors were told, you must not break your vows. You must carry out the vows you make to the Lord. But I say, do not make any vows. Do not say by heaven, because heaven is God's throne. And then do not say by the earth, because the earth is his footstool. And do not say by Jerusalem, for Jerusalem is the city of the great king. And do not even say by my head, I make a vow, for you can't turn one hair white or black. Just say a simple yes, I will, or no, I would. Anything beyond this is from the evil one. See, that is highlighted. Means that, why are you trying to make vows? You make vow to impress people. Recently, just a couple of years now, right? Certain politicians make vow, right? I make vow, I sompa, I didn't steal from the country, and so on and so forth. Why were they making all these vows when you know real full well that all evidences shown that they were actually stealing from the country? But they were making vows, and those vows will actually come against them. Yeah. So anything beyond this is from the evil one. So the evil one has instigated those vows. So for us now, try not to make vow. But of course, that if you have to get married and you have to make a vow to each other, please make a vow to each other. Don't say, Pastor say don't make vows. Then I will not say my married vow. All right. Okay. And then if let's say you are going to be a Singaporean and you are a Malaysian, and then we need you to say a vow. I promise to be loyal to Singapore. So you cannot God say cannot say vow. Then you will not be a Singaporean. Yeah. Okay. They continue, let them live, but let them be woodcutters, water carriers in the service of the whole assembly. So what happened was that they allow them to live, but that these people will stay with them, not stay on their own, but stay with them, because the whole place will become Israel, and then that they will become laborers or slave, yeah, laborers, yeah. And so the leader's promise to them was kept. So they would become water carriers, because in those days they didn't have pipe in water, yeah, and also be wood cutters. And so then Joshua summoned the Gibeonites and said, "Why did you deceive us by saying we live a long way from you, while actually you live near us?" He was a bit upset. He called the leaders in and said, "Why did you tell us that?" And so he said, "You are now under a curse. You will never be released from service as woodcutters and water carriers for the house of my God." I like the last part, Yeah, you slave, but whatever that you do, you're going to do it for the house of my God, for the house of God, for the tabernacle. Okay, you are going to take care, bring water, because during the time, when they need to sacrifice and they need a lot of water, and then they need a lot of firewood to burn the offering. All right, so you are going to be these people, the laborers, the workers. I wrote that it's a blessed curse. You know why? Because first, they got to live. Second, they got to serve in the house of God. And they were supposed to be woodcutters. And woodcutters means that they produce fire, the fire of the Holy Spirit. I want to be the woodcutter in the house of the Lord, where the fire of the Holy Spirit burns. Yeah, I want to be a water carrier, where rivers of living water in the house of God flows. Means that I carry water into the house of God. So serving at the house of God. So this kind of curse is a blessed curse. So can you see now? So it is not so much slavery, but you find that later on the Gibeonites became worshiper of the true God. They give up. Many of them give up their idols and they worship God. So they answered Joshua and said, "Your servants were clearly told how the Lord your God has commanded his servant Moses to give you the whole land and to wipe out all its inhabitants from before you." They had already spied out the enemies and they knew the resolve of the enemies. And so that once the people of Israel will come in, they will destroy everybody in Canaan land. So we feared for our life because of you, and that's why we did this. We are now in your hands. So we surrender to you. Do to us whatever seems good and right to you. I want to refer you to Rahab. You see, the Gibeonites, they had confidence in God and confident that God was giving the land to Israel. They're full confidence that God was giving the land to Israel. And like Rahab, in Hebrew chapter 11, verse 31 say, by faith, Rahab the prostitute, okay? She was not a clean woman, a holy woman, a prophetess. No, she was a prostitute. But yet God showed her favor because of her faith. So no matter what background you come from, you can be a prostitute, or you can be a gay, or you can be anything else. As long as you come to God and you show confidence in God and faith in God, and God is going to take you from your past and give you a very bright future. From the darkness of your past, and God is going to give you the light of his way. So by faith, Rahab the prostitute did not perish with those who were disobedient. Those who came against God were disobedient because she has given a friendly welcome to the spies. Remember, she hid the spies. And when the enemy came to look for the spies, she did not inform them where the spies were. And so what happened to her? Blessing. Rahab was a Canaanite, remember? But her whole family was saved. They were all saved because of her. They didn't get killed. In fact, she married Salmon. It's not that fish. This Salmon is a man, right? She married Salmon, and their son was Boaz. Remember Boaz, who married Ruth. Okay, and Ruth, they produce a baby called Obed, and Obed produced Jesse, and Jesse produced, give birth to David, King David. And guess what? All the way down, Joseph, the adoptive father of Jesus, was her direct descendant. Wow. A prostitute became a blessed ancestor of David, of Jesus. So what about you? Don't look at your past. Don't cry, oh, I got a bad, oh, nobody loved me. Look at your future. So Joshua saved them from the Israelites, and they did not kill them. Joshua was like Jesus, remember the name Joshua? Jesus. Yeah. So that because of a vow, a covenant that Jesus made with us, no enemy can destroy us. No Satan and demon can take our life. Cannot. We have a covenant. We are the covenanted people. Make sure that you are a covenanted people. Means that you're born again. Okay, you're born again. That you are a disciple of Christ. And don't become like a disciple of your own, I, Christ and Christ alone. That day he made the Gibeonites woodcutters and water carrier for the assembly to provide for the needs of the altar of the Lord at the place the Lord would choose. Wow. And that is what they are to this day. They continue at the time of the writing of this, all right, they continue to serve. So the power of oath. Then many years later came King Saul. And if you read in 2 Samuel, in fact, King Saul tried to exterminate the Gibeonites. And then because King Saul tried to do that, the Lord caused 3 years of famine to happen to Israel. Means everybody suffered famine because of King Saul. Because this guy was self-willed and he thought that he was doing God a favor, and he started to kill the Gibeonites. Means sending soldiers, he and his sons and all the commanders of the army went in to like massacre. And God said, I'm not happy with it because you all have a vow. You said a vow. Okay? And you got to keep it. And so when it came to the time of David, and David inquired of the Lord and said, why we have this famine? Then the Lord said, because of the sin of King Saul. And so then what should we do? Then the Gibeonites said that, give us 7 sons of King Saul, and we will sacrifice them in the presence of the Lord. Okay? As a means of apology, because you have killed many of our sons. We just need 7 sons. And when that was done, the famine stopped. The power of the vow, the power of oath. Be very careful. What you sumpa, I swear. Okay? Be very careful. Don't say it if at all possible. Then the Bible says that at the tabernacle, for the tabernacle of the Lord, which Moses had made in the wilderness, and the altar of burnt offering were at that time in the high place at Gibeon. So these people, from deception to reception, okay, they've been invited in the house of the Lord to serve in the house of the Lord, and that even in their sitting in the high place around that place where they live, you find that there was the worship of Yahweh. Wow. So what have we learned? We learned that all are cursed because of Adam's sin, that all can be free from the curse because Jesus took all our curses away. All right, all means that Jewish people, Gentile people, Chinese people, Indian people, Malay, all. God sees disrespect and dishonor to elders as a very serious offense. Therefore, honor your father and mother. Commandment number 5, that your life might be long. This is the only one commandment that give you a stipulation, that give you a reward. Okay, right? That your life might be long. Canaanites who believe, no, a curse once pronounced will bring forth tough consequences. So be very careful. Like Noah, he echoed a curse, and so you find that that curse began to play out in the descendants of Canaan. And then God also said that Canaanites who believe in God were spared from extermination. The Gibeonites knew the power of oath, and they got one from Israel. Joshua and Israel were honorable, and they kept their oath. And then all of us here, we should not take making oath lightly. Must be very careful. Don't even make it, yeah? The Gibeonites became the laborers serving at the tabernacle of God. Means that it's a blessed curse, okay? There's a blessing in that curse. And Saul's family paid a heavy price when they broke the oath. So Saul, why he messed up was because he followed after his own heart. He didn't listen to God. So every time on Facebook and all the internet, people say, follow after your own heart. Let me tell you, that is the problem. Because your heart is desperately wicked. Don't think that your heart is always gentle and nice. There can be some of the worst evil things that come out from your heart. Hatred, bitterness, and all kinds of stuff. Yeah. Then because they faithfully serve God, as a foreigner, as a stranger in the land, but they were close to the temple of God. They became the worshiper of God. And then even Gibeon became a place of worship. And so from that day on, Gibeonites worship the true and living God. And later on, they fade into history, but they were known as the worshiper of God. Hallelujah. Praise be God. That's it for the word of God this morning. Oh, it's only 12 p.m. Praise God. So I pray that this word of God will be a blessing to you, that you learn that you are not cursed because you have Christ. Christ has taken away your curse. So, Sister Nina, does that answer your question? Right? The Chinese and the Indian and everybody else, we come under the grace and the mercy of God. And then when we reach out and we receive the salvation from Jesus Christ, praise be to God, that salvation comes to us. We need to humble ourselves. We cannot say, oh, I'm so smart, I can depend on myself. I don't need God. All of us need God. Even after we come to know Jesus Christ, day in and day out. As I prepare this sermon, I cry out to him. I cry out to him and say, Lord, how I need you. I need to understand this. I was asking God how to understand this thing about why Noah cursed Canaan. I read so many answers by different scholars. And then while I was taking a shower, then the voice of God said, because of you being my youngest son, you behave like that. And I'm going to let you experience the same thing. Thank you, Jesus.